Death by Bungie's Crossbows seasons of 2023 are starting off with our 3-video series from Maryland. Death by Bunjie. As many of you know, we don't have an awful lot of time to hunt here this year, unfortunately. I have taken a new job. I'm starting in October, the worst time of year to start a new job. I will be working in October, November, December at a new job, so it's going to eat up a lot of my time. I won't have a lot of time off.
I do have a full-time job, but I'm also a taxidermist, so between those two things, I really don't have a lot of time to hunt.
But we do have September, and that's the early crossbow season for us here on Death by Bunjie.
Maryland is handy because it opens much earlier than Pennsylvania does back home, so this is really probably going to be my biggest opportunity to actually hunt this year. I've shot nice bucks in the past, and this year I'm looking to try out a different setup, and I'm going to try and step up my filming game a little bit. And mostly I'm coming down to Maryland for an opportunity to shoot a nice big doe this year.
My goal this year is to try out the Burris Oracle X again and see if these new versions of that scope work. Check out the other videos I've done on that subject.
He has kind of a love-hate relationship with that scope. When it works fantastic, and it makes me want one. But then sometimes it doesn't work so well, and it makes me really not want one.
But I really think a scope like that works well on an old, slow crossbow like Bunjie because there's such an arc to those arrows. The difference between 20 yards and 24 yards can be quite significant in a hunting situation.
Dad loves Bunjie. My dad does have a brand new crossbow this year. He hasn't used it in an actual hunt yet, but he's very excited. He wants to get Bunjie out there first, get Bunjie an opportunity to show the new crossbow how it's done.
We're not going to just stop doing it now, right? The OB and I are going to hit the woods at some point. Maryland, the early crossbow season for us, is a perfect opportunity.
I'm using the same setup that I've been using. So while Dad's out in the backyard shooting Bunjie over and over and over again, trying to get this scope just right to go to Maryland, I take 3 shots. One at 20, 30, and 40 yards. Bunjie Jr.'s ready to go. Nothing's changed, and I'm very confident with this crossbow this year.
Off to Maryland we go with the Burris Oracle X and Bunjie in hand.
Here's Dad. He's got his second coffee of the day. And driving like he's had to today.
Where are we, Genevieve?
We're in Maryland. We made it.
We made it. And we are on our way to our favorite tree stands in Maryland. Are you excited?
Yeah.
I'm excited too. And I brought a crossbow. What crossbow did you bring?
I brought Bunjie Jr. Big surprise.
Big surprise. Yeah. And I brought with me on this trip 2 crossbows, one of which I'm going to use in my first hunt. And we will just have to wait and see which one that is.
We're getting ready to go to some of our favorite tree stands in Maryland.
We're a little nervous on the drive-in because there's cornfields everywhere this year.
One of the reasons we go to Maryland, one of the reasons I love Maryland for the early crossbow season is the fact that you can hunt over bait. We can hunt over corn. Is it as effective when there's 40 acres of corn right next door? Then we get to the tree stand, I got another issue. I'm looking at it and using the rangefinder that's built into the scope, I find that corn pile, nice and spread out, I like that, like it a lot, but it's between 22 and 26 yards. Now, if I were using a vintage scope, like the speed ring scopes that I use, the trusted scopes that work pretty much all the time. If I were using one of those, I'd be a little bit more concerned because now all of a sudden my 20-yard reticle isn't precise, right? I'm not looking at a corn pile that's exactly at 20 yards. 26 or so the deer is expected to be. That's a pretty good range with an old slow crossbow with a heavy arrow. With the Burris Oracle X, however, I am not concerned about that one bit because with the click of a button, it gives me a precise little red dot, a precise reticle for exactly the location of the deer. If it's at 20 yards, if it's at 26 yards, doesn't make any difference. I'm only going to get one reticle. I'm going to pull the trigger and the arrow is going to go exactly where I'm aiming. Hopefully. So really, this is the perfect opportunity to test this scope this year and see if it solves that problem in judging distance. before too long, I get a little bit of movement off to my right. We've got some customers. We got a live one coming on in. They're a little hesitant. They're a little nervous about that pile. I'm sure after years and years of Bunjie and I going there and shooting deer over these corn piles, they get a little suspicious, right? It's probably in their DNA by now to be a little suspicious of that tree stand area. This doe is at exactly 22 yards. Not a problem. Bunjie and I, we're gonna take that shot.
Life is easy. I said life is easy. Life is so easy.
That is perfect accuracy, right where I wanted that arrow to go. I am so happy with the performance of that. 22 yards, not too far from 20 yards, and granted, with a speed ring scope, I've accomplished the same thing, but it's nice to see that scope working. I'm aiming a little bit low up front and toward the heart this year, especially with that older, slower crossbow. At that distance, deer have been known to duck the string a little bit. In fact, you can see this deer ducks about 3 inches before that old, slow crossbow can deliver a 563 grain Swahacker broadhead on the end of a zombie slayer arrow. No problem, no problem. We'll track that deer after a bit, but it's early, it's early. Let's recock old Bunjie and see if we can get another opportunity.
I'm going back to one of my favorite stands in the whole world. It's got a mixture of hardwoods and pine, and there's also a clear cut off to my right. It's starting to get dark, and I start to hear the leaves crunch around me a little bit, so I know the deer are moving. Look off to my right, and I can see a whole herd of deer coming. There's 4 or 5 deer out there, and they're coming right to the corn. 3 deer approach the corn pile, a yearling, a fawn with spots, and a really nice doe. They all pile up on top of each other. There's one right next to the other. And I kinda, at first, think I can sneak an arrow in there, but I'm not quite ready. And I don't want to accidentally clip another deer behind the big doe. So these deer are feeding here. They're very content. They're not looking at me at all. They aren't moving at all, and that's the problem, and it's starting to get dark. Finally, the tiny fawn behind the big doe does step out of the way, and she's giving me a perfect broadside shot. So Bunjie Jr. and I, we're gonna let her rip. The woods explodes. All the deer off to my right ran clear off to the right towards my dad's stand. The deer at the corn pile, they all scatter to the left, and this doe jumps up in the air and she runs all the way over to the right again. And I see her go out of sight, and the woods is silent, but then I hear her crash.
Off to my left, I actually hear what sounds like a deer crashing, so without knowing, I'm pretty sure Genevieve just got a shot.
I think I just made a really nice shot on a big doe down here in Maryland. There was a whole bunch of deer on the pile. There was one really little one right behind the other, and I didn't want to sneak one in there. Then the other one was a good sized doe too, not quite as big, but I didn't really like the angle that she was at. She was facing away from me pretty hard, so I had to wait for the little fawn behind her to get out of the way. Oh, I was so scared she was gonna look up and see me or something.
Bunjie and I are patiently waiting to see if any more customers come in. And sure enough, we get another live one. Coming on in, we see some more deer. This time, the doe sets up at 26 yards. Now, this is a real test of that scope. 26 is not 20. 26 is not 30, if you know what I'm saying, especially with that old slow crossbow and the trajectory of that arrow. Perfect opportunity to test this whole setup. we're going to take that shot.
Down the tree, stand hugger.
Perfection. Yes. Did have some other deer milling around, didn't come in. Can't get the 3 we got 2. This is the 3rd time Bunjie and I have killed 2 deer in one sit. Never killed 3, but 2's enough.
So here is one. Ooh, that is a good arrow. And it tore off a vein. I lost a vein.
I need to work on that a little bit and start gluing them on a little bit better. They just fell off going through the deer. That shouldn't happen.
There's that. Arrow number 2. No, this will be arrow number 1. Boom. So there they are. 1, 2.
Just got a text from my dad. He shot 2 does tonight, so I don't know. Whatever. We just drove down today. You see my Luminoc here. That stupid thing wasn't on all the way when it went through the deer, but it looked like a good shot. I'm really gonna hear it from my dad on that one, because he's been wanting me to switch forever. I'm using the New Fletch igniters in bright green, and I do really like these Luminoc. I did it again. I'm using the New Fletch igniter lock. They need to give these simpler names. I am using the New Fletch igniter nocks in bright green, and I do really like these, but every now and then they don't seem to go off quite right, and Dad always jokes about me, just switch to the Luminoc already, he always tells me. Before I go back out to meet my dad, I do take a quick peek at the arrow. I never go wandering around out in the woods to look for the deer until I hear his input on it. Oh, jeez, what is that? Some European hornet or something in a spider web. Good looking arrow though. Little hard to see. Good looking blood though. And I heard her go down out in there somewhere. Oh, that thing's alive. Oh, it's in the air. Laugh all you want, but Maryland is a whole nother animal. They got insects. I don't even know what they are down here. I'm not used to these kind of bugs.
The Burt Coyote Luminox looks so perfect. Yeah, I gotta change the battery in the one. And yeah, I found bugs of my own. All right, this is the part about tracking the deer. This can be a little bit graphic, a little bit gory, so you've been warned. For the rest of us, that's what you want to see, right? You want to see how this equipment performed.
Oh yeah. Boy, I'm loving that. Thank you, swahackers. All right. Here's my doe. Looking good. That's a nice doe. Looking good. We got the 3-inch swacker. Can't beat it.
We find my 2 deer okay. The blood trail's not difficult to track them whatsoever.
We found both his deer, no problem. They didn't go very far. Now it's time to go find mine. Turns out she went right where I thought she did. She didn't go very far, 40, 50 yards. We found her no problem once we got through all the bugs and murder hornets out in the woods.
Not bad, kiddo. Congratulations, you did it.
Thank you.
You got yourself a Maryland doe.
In the end, all 3 of the deer that we shot, these are perfect shots. Couldn't be happier with the shot placement, with the way that all of this worked out. So proud of Genevieve for the work that she did. Do you need all the fancy equipment and technology? No, but it's nice to have, and it's nice to know that it's functioning properly and that when it works perfectly. Fingers crossed it continues to work. More on our Maryland hunting adventures coming soon. Until next time, all hail Bunjie.